This is the plaintiff, Kiana. She says the defendant enrolled 3 kids in her daycare service, and the woman's trying to stiff her on the tuition. She's not about to let this lady get away with not paying her the hard-earned money she's owed, and is suing her for the $720 she's due. This is the defendant, Khalid. She says the woman would have her boyfriend come over while she was watching her kids, and that is totally unprofessional. Not to mention, the daycare was unkempt. She didn't feel it was a healthy environment, so she pulled her kids out and owes nothing. She's accused of skipping out on tuition.
All parties, please raise your right hands. Court is now in session. The Honorable Judge Marilyn Williamson presiding. Litigants have been sworn, Your Honor.
Thank you, Douglas.
You're welcome.
Okay, Ms. Kiana, you are suing Ms. Khalif for $720 that you believe she still owes you. What happened here?
Well, in August the 11th, she enrolled her 3 kids in my child care, my in-home child care. In October, she had withdrawn one of the kids because they were starting school, and I continued to keep 2 of her daughters. On November the 3rd, I had a car accident, which caused me to have to call out that day because one of my kids in the accident had got ejected out the car, and we had to get rushed to the hospital.
How did the kid get ejected out of the car? Did they have a seatbelt on, or they didn't have a seatbelt on?
They did have a seatbelt on, but the child, it was like a real old car seat, and it was real raggedy. And
was that one of your children or someone else's child?
Oh, no, it was my kid. I was taking him to school that morning.
All right.
And so I text Miss Khalid and let her know that I wasn't going to be able to watch because we was getting rushed to the hospital, which she seemed okay, but she was a little mad that I had called out, but I didn't let her know the incident. But when I seen that she kind of got mad, I let her know, like, hey, I got into a car accident. I'm getting rushed to the hospital or whatnot. So usually on Monday mornings, all parents have to pay their tuition at drop-off. And usually she pays every Monday morning. But when I text her to ask, like, hey, I got into a car accident. Y'all wasn't going to be able to come, to deduct $30 out of the tuition because I know I had to call out, and I usually don't be calling out. So I tried to help her out because I know she probably would have had to find another sitter. And I'm just, she texts back or whatnot, okay, or whatnot. But then I never got the payment. So I had text her and was like, hey, are you going to send payment? Because I got rent due and all this and all that. And that's when she was like, well, I feel like, I don't want to bring them back and all that. And I'm like, I'm not understanding because you was just about to bring them back this morning before I text you having to call out. And then that's when we just had a little disagreement. And she was like, well, she feared for her kids' safety and this and that, and some incident that happened between me and my cousin where my cousin had went back to tell her I don't feed the kids and I'm doing this and that and the third. And she was just voicing her concerns and why she didn't want to bring the kids back. And
what do you think was, if the reasons she was giving were not true, then what do you think is the reason that she didn't want to bring back the kids? Because you two were actually kind of friends, right? Would you guys go out with each other and stuff? Like, you guys crossed the line of parent, employee. Yeah. So what do you think it was if it wasn't, in fact, that she...
Okay, so I let my cousin stay with me because she was homeless. And, me and my cousin, we got into a disagreement because she's young. She's only 18.
All right. Do you have a contract? Do you have a written contract with your parents?
I have a typed up contract, yes.
Okay. And was it in effect at the time at this time, or had you not updated it?
No, it's in effect. Once you sign, it's in effect for 12 months, which if I can show you the contract. And it says, in the event of termination of care by either party, there is required a 2 weeks notice. During the 2 weeks notice time frame, you'll be expected to pay each week in full, regardless of whether your child attends daycare or not.
This is the standard child care contract. It's all over the internet. everybody uses this one. Let me ask Ms. Kali, can you tell me what happened?
Yes. So we did have a relationship, but during the time that my kids were there, I seen some things that I didn't feel safe. I have 2 babies, so they can't talk. But even though we did have a relationship, for me as a parent, I didn't feel comfortable for my kids being there. So sometimes I would come in and it would be things all over the place or in the daycare. And it's still people sleep. She was never a professional. She never really wore a uniform. So it was like she was just getting out the bed while I'm dropping my kids off.
But what was it that made you take your kids out of the childcare?
So the last incident where the car wreck, it was just like, okay, this is just the last straw. It's been too many incidents where, where I first had my kids, she had her boyfriend over, and she also had a person as an employee, underage. And, my understanding, you're supposed to have background checks. Now, I didn't really trip, but it was just like, okay, if she's okay with kids, then I'm okay with kids. But with the incident with my baby falling off the couch, it was just like, okay, what's going on?
Hold on, back up. She had her boyfriend there during daycare hours?
Yes.
And did you know the boyfriend?
No, I didn't know any of these people until I was there, or until I was actually,
And did you find out anything about him? I mean, if there was a man around my infant children, I would want to know something about him. Did you find out anything about him?
No. So once I drop my kids off, say for instance, I'm picking them up, then I'll see him around.
Yeah, but those are the kind of questions that a parent should ask. I need to know what men my child is in contact with, because that's important to know, because you're right, your kids don't speak. And,
Yes.
someone else has access to your children.
Right.
You should know that. Now, you decide you're going to take your kids out, and the contract does say that you're supposed to pay 2 weeks, but you feel that she breached the contract by not giving your children adequate care, and therefore you shouldn't have to pay the 2 weeks. Would that be correct?
Well, yes, that's correct.
You said something about your daughter falling off a couch. Tell me about that.
Yes, ma'am. So my son, he was there at the time, and some of the incidents he will tell me as soon as I get in. Yes, ma'am. He'll get in and he'll basically just blurt out, how the day went, or he'll tell me what happened.
And what did he tell you that caused you any alarm?
The first incident was where my little baby had fell off the couch. And she has hard wood floors. So I was, very alarmed about that. And even though, I told her about these incidents, she'll tell me,
You told who?
Another scenario. The daycare lady.
Oh, the plaintiff. You would tell her?
Yes.
Did she ever tell you that your daughter fell off the couch?
No, until after my son did.
Now, there's a picture that you introduced into evidence. Who is this here?
That's my baby.
That is your baby. Who sent you this?
That's the cousin who was there.
All right, so her cousin
The
sent you
teenager's
this.
the one.
Blank, when I think about her safety, she could have tried to walk and it flew up her mouth, bro. I had to take a picture of it that day. That is a screwdriver in her mouth. Is that a screwdriver in her baby's mouth?
And you want to know what's crazy? I never even seen this until now. And I promise that on my kids. I didn't even know about that. And most likely to
Were you a little bit overwhelmed with the day? Is the daycare still open or did you close it?
No, it's still open.
Did I see in some of these texts that you were feeling slightly overwhelmed and that you were thinking about closing it because it was just too much and maybe you weren't ready? Yeah. So what was overwhelming you?
What was just overwhelming me is that the fact that, it's just a lot. It's so much inconsistency. Me trying to keep up with my daycare and then parents taking out or just something. It's just like I have to pay a bill. I can't tell my bills like, oh, my parent withdraw, I can't pay you. And that's what was so overwhelming. And it was just like, she knows why I get defensive because it's like she'll just sit there and pick over the little stuff. Like I have all these kids. She'll be like, hey, did Kenry learn today? Did he be in his workbooks? And I'm like, okay, I had to keep up with this baby, this baby, this baby. Like I do like simple learning things like, ABCs, sing songs and dance. I can't just sit there and just really just be a full-blown teacher to the older kids because I'm trying to keep up with the younger kids. And it's just like she'll get mad if her kids come in and her kids dirty. Like, say if they got Cheetos on their clothes, she'll get mad like, why are they dirty? So it's like I'm trying to keep up with keeping them clean. And I used to just be so overwhelmed to the fact like if they get dirty, I'll take their clothes off, put it in the washer just so they can be clean when she picks up. And it was just like she just always just find every little thing to pick. Like she'll be mad that the daycare is dirty. Like, what do you expect? I have my 5 on top of your 3 and 2 others trying to clean. It cannot be clean all the time.
Here's the thing, Miss Kiana. You must be good at what you do because it took her a really long time to decide that she was going to pull her kids out. In other words, she knew you had a bond with the kids. And
yes,
so there's some really good stuff about how you do what you do because she knows you love them. She must think that mostly they were safe and stuff. But if we're being fair, I think that even you understand that perhaps during that time, for whatever reason, for whatever else was going on in your life, you know, and it can happen to any of us, that maybe you weren't up to your game. When you confessed to me that you closed it for a while to just think through and I think you're being pretty straightforward about admitting that. And that's a great trait. I love that about you because most people's problem is they can't see themselves clearly. But here's the thing. I can't really look at this mom and say, you should have kept your kids there. If she has a reason for taking the kids out that has to do with you, then she doesn't have to pay the 2 weeks. The 2 weeks is in your contract, but that's if everything is working perfectly. If things are going a little downhill and becoming messy and stuff like that, and she's worried because she's not getting adequately informed, or she walks in and there's a man, or you know, people are just waking up when she's dropping off or all these other things that she's telling me about, to say nothing of the baby with the screwdriver, which. Again, it's not the reason she pulled her kids out because she just got that now. That's some dangerous stuff. And
I was furious.
I'm more concerned about the idiot that took the picture instead of running to the baby and taking the screwdriver out. And you should be too. Whoever sent you that picture, and I guess that's your cousin, that is someone who thought that it would be better to get their phone, open it up, get the camera working and take a picture. And if your daughter had gotten up and started walking, just like the text that she sent says, it would be too late, okay? So, you know, you're picking up what I'm putting down here, right? The cousin is no friend of yours. That's your child who she put in jeopardy by taking a picture so she could, you know, mess up her cousin in this case. You understand me, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
That should have been the first thing you thought about, the fact that she stopped to take a picture. All right. Based on the circumstances that I have heard, I am finding that she is not going to be bound by the 2-week clause, and I'm ruling in favor of the defendant. But I wish you all good luck, and I hope you find or have found already good child care, and I wish you success in your business. Take care.
I love you, Judge. Thank you.
I know, right?
So the defendant prevails in this case. She does not have to give the money back, the $720. She doesn't have to pay that. Kiana, let me just ask you, the judge said some nice things to you, but at the same time, the defendant doesn't have to pay you. What are you thinking?
Oh, no, I'm okay with it. I'm just happy that it happened because it made me get my head on stronger and make me be a better business person. So I'm not upset about it at all.
All right, very good. Well, hopefully you've learned from this experience.
Yes, I have.
In the future, you know? I'm sure you have. All right. Thank you. Kaylee, let me just ask you now, what do you think about what the judge said to you? She was very nice.
I don't really have anything to say. I just want, you know, like I said, those are my babies. And, you know, maybe I should have been a little bit more stern about, you know, how to just make sure my kids are being safe regardless of a contract. So I definitely do understand where she was coming from.
All right. Well, congratulations. Good for you.
Pretty straightforward contract case. in this instance where you just had a 12-month contract, right? You said you've seen that contract a few times before.
Oh yeah, that's going all over the internet.
Everybody's got it.
Everybody uses that contract.
That template. Okay, so she signs up for a year, and it does say she's got to give 2 weeks notice, or she's on the hook for those 2 weeks if she doesn't, regardless of whether her kids attend. And that's what happened, right?
Right.
Okay.
And the only defense to that will be exactly what the defense was in this case, which is I didn't breach.
You breached first.
You breached first.
Right. And that's, look, you have to maintain a standard of care, the reasonable standard of care of safety, et cetera, for the kids. And I guess you were not convinced that, at least in the time preceding that was being upheld. Is that right?
Yeah, that's basically it.
You know, we give our kids to daycares or, babysitters and things like that. It's the most precious thing we have in our lives. It's always kind of you're always on edge. You're always a little nervous. You're always worried, I suppose, when they're out of your sight. And that one photo was that kind of shook me up. The baby with, she's got a screwdriver in her mouth. What else is there? Does she have a nail gun one day or a chainsaw?
What's going on with the person who goes to get her camera and takes that picture instead of taking the screwdriver out of the kid's mouth?
It didn't make a lot of sense.
So Sandy wants to know this. Hey, Harvey, now that so many courts are using video instead of in-person hearings, judges can see how people live, the level of cleanliness, how do they stay objective and not make judgments based on appearance of their environment. Well, that's an easy one for judges. A judge isn't supposed to look and say, boy, you have a ratty sofa, therefore I'm not going to believe you. It's irrelevant. And most judges, I would almost argue all judges, don't care what your place looks like. What they care about is if you're legally in the right.